Well, this next video on connecting faith from each book of the Bible, and we're looking at the book of Ezra, is titled Relate to Your People. Now, this is an interesting story, and you may not expect that Cyrus was the king at this time in the foreign nation that was holding the people captivity. And in Ezra chapter 1 verses 1 to 7 you can read the story. But this Persian king was able to connect with God's people that were in captivity. You wouldn't expect that from a king like this. But the king, he could connect with these people, whereas their own king couldn't. Now, you'd think their own king would be able to connect with them, but he couldn't, and the opposition king could. And he connected Cyrus he connected and identified with the values and the heart of these people he has in captivity. And this strengthened his reign because they were willing to support or encourage him. And how did he connect with these people? And there's some good lessons for us in our churches and in our businesses. Number one, we need to be humble. Verse 2, he realized his power came from God. This was a foreign king, and he realized his power came from the ultimate source, not just these wooden idols in verse 2. Second thing was responsibility. He knew he needed to build a place for the people to worship. And therefore they wouldn't be opposed to him if he was stopping them worshipping their God, again in verse 2. Number 3, empowerment. He allowed and empowered those who had the heart to go back and build this temple in Jerusalem to actually be able to do the work in verse 3. And he empowered them. Number 3, resources. He not only empowered them, but he provided the resources, and extensive resources, not just a few things, a few hammers and nails, so to speak, but all the timbers and stone that was needed. You can look at that in verse 4. He issued a decree in that people were to supply them with all the resources and the builders that they needed to make this happen. And then the fifth one was stewardship. He managed the people's gifts. Each of the people that he came to recognize had different gifts, and he used them to their strengths. He empowered them in their strengths to go forward in verse 5. And number 6, priorities. He valued what was important to the people, not what he wanted to push on them. And through all these 6 things, great lessons, worthwhile listening to them again, are things that we can do with those that we work with and those that we are responsible for, or those that actually work for us. And God used a foreign king to help his people. Who says he can't use people that are opposed to us that actually help us to build our churches and our businesses? So learn to relate to your people.